We're live.
Yay.
Bum 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 bum.
Live.
All right, is everybody ready?
I think I'm ready.
All righty. It is March 8th, 2019. I'm Micah Sargent, and right now we are going to talk about a very special day today. It's International Women's Day. We're going to talk about
women.
We're going to talk about encryption. We're going to talk about a new iPad. We're going to talk about Face ID and Touch ID and a very strange change on Twitter. Good old Tim Apple and so much more, because this is the iMore Show. All righty, folks, we have a nice little crew here today. We, of course, have Lori Gill. How you doing, Lori?
Pretty good. Today's my day.
Today is Lori's day.
It's my day.
Yes.
Special day just for me.
You and you alone. We are excited to be here to celebrate you. Renee Ritchie is also here, rocking it from Canada. How you doing, Renee?
Thank you, Micah host. That's awesome.
Micah host. I love it.
I just want to point out, Georgia Dow could not be with us because she decided to be an international woman today and actually cross borders.
Yes.
Wow. Cross borders and take names.
She's on Lori's side today.
We're missing 50%. Oh, really? Is she in California?
Yeah. No, I don't know where she's right now because she's driving across the country.
Wow.
So there's a great disturbance in the forest because the Canadianness is...
It's seeped into
some of the evil has left Canada.
I honestly think she's driving between Florida and California, waiting for one of the Star Wars rides to open first.
That's funny and quite possibly
Is it here yet?
True.
Is it here yet? Is it here yet?
Oh, wow.
Like Luke on the land speeder scene, but over and over again, backwards and forward.
Boy. Well, we have quite a bit to talk about today, and I think we should just go ahead and break right into it. So March is Women's History Month as a whole. And today, March 8th, is International Women's Day.
Women!
Woo! And so one of the things that's happening is Apple is celebrating women all month long. And given that this is the iMore Show, we figured we'd talk a little bit about some of the offerings that are available, of course, and discuss kind of what the company is doing. To me, it's interesting, sort of sorting through. I think companies can take the right approach and the wrong approach to celebrating these kinds of holidays. And when it's about putting the group that's being celebrated first, and it is not about, hey, it's International Women's Day and we sell some fun stuff that you want to buy. Here's a coupon. And it's
here's something pink.
Oh God, that's even worse, right? Here's something pink, or here is a pin that has a smaller design. So apparently it's for what? No. But yeah, what's going on with International Women's Day? Because Lori, you wrote up a couple articles here.
I did. So I had the privilege and honor of actually getting to interview 4 Canadian women, actually, that are app developers and CEOs and founders of app organizations, and really got to kind of get a little insight into the world that they exist in and how they got where they were going. Mayan Ziv, founder of Access Now, which I highly recommend right now. Pause this, go get Access Now. It's kind of like Yelp for accessibility. Micah, I know you're going to love this. I thought of you when I found it. I actually hadn't heard of it before, and I feel terrible that I hadn't heard of it before. Access Now, all one word. It's a mapping app that recommends or tells you businesses that have accessibility. Wow. And it's user-based. So, the people that go to these establishments get to, they drop a pin for this particular location, and they say either it's fully accessible, somewhat accessible, or not accessible at all, and can put in some information about it. For example, there's the hospital that's right down the street from me. It's somewhat accessible, and the user put in there that the doors open outward instead of inward, so it's harder to get in and out of the room. So your wheelchair can fit, but it's kind of a complicated situation to get in and out of the building. I think this is so fantastic because I just, as a person who does not have mobility issues, I don't think about those kinds of things when I walk into a building. And Mayan, actually, she was on a Vice documentary that you can find on the Access Now website. And she talked about how her friends would say, hey, let's go to this place. Let's meet up at this place for a drink or for something to eat. And then she would have to say, well, is it wheelchair accessible? And all of her friends would think, oh, I don't know. And that's like, so that's something that I don't have to deal with. So being able to find these locations and make sure that they're accessible is such a great thing for everybody. Like we should all be participating in this and helping like sort of map out the world around us as to locations that are accessible, not just whether or not you can get through the front door, but whether or not your wheelchairs can fit within the confines of the building, whether the bathrooms are accessible, all that kind of stuff. It's just a really great app. I was very impressed with that. Another woman that I got to interview was Huda Adriz. She founded Dot Health, which Renee, you probably know a little bit more about this than I do. It's an app that allows you, it collects your health data for you so that you don't have to do it. In the US, I don't think this is something that we're even allowed to do. The health app in the US does a lot of this stuff, but I think Dot Health actually goes a little bit further than what we're allowed to do in the US in collecting this for you. It's completely private. It's all your personal data. You give permission for them to do that. And all of your doctor's appointments, all of your medical reports and clinical visits and everything, they all get kind of stored in one place. So for people who go to the hospital a lot, this can get just out of hand because you have people over here with reports and people over there with lab things, and this collects it all in one place for you. It's a really great thing. Jane G, she founded Spring-Based Studios, which they make children's apps, iBiome Wetland and iBiome Ocean, which are very adorable little educational games, not just apps, but games that kids can play to learn about the world around them. They're actually working on their third as well. So they're really taking off. They're kind of like forward momentum when it comes to educational kids stuff. And then Bree Code, who is the CEO and creative director of True Love Media. The app that she helped develop is called #selfcare, which I love this one. It's just an app that you just open it up and you kind of help this character who's laying in bed just lay in bed and relax. So for you as a person who I can't lay in bed all day and just kind of enjoy the day and relax, but I can help this character just kind of relax. And that helps me. So there's like breathing exercises and a little word game that you can play. And that kind of helps her tidy up her room. Every time you do something, you're kind of helping her take care of herself throughout the day. And,
cool.
For us, we would take 10 minutes to kind of do these little things, which helps us relax. And then at the same time, we're just helping this character, this avatar of us, basically take care of themselves. So it's really great. So yeah, these 4 women, they all come from all over the world. They live in Canada now, but some of them were born at other places and relocated to Canada. And they have these amazing stories just about what it was like to be women. Growing up in a tech industry, which, when some of them, when they were younger, were not very welcoming to women. So they have these very great, inspiring stories that I definitely recommend everyone checking out. Also, Apple is doing just across the board a ton of amazing stuff this month. And in a perfect world, I was reading about all these great. So Apple's doing their sessions, their Today at Apple sessions, and this month, for the entire month, they're focusing on women. I'm not trying to say that men shouldn't be able to do things. You want it to be equal. You want people that are the best at whatever they do to be the ones that do these. Mm-hmm. But in a perfect world, it would always be equal. It would always be 50% men, 50% women. And it's not. It's getting there, but it's not yet. So the Today at Apple events that are taking place all over the world are extraordinary and have these amazing women who are doing these great sessions. There's even one that's Hillary Yip is only 14 years old. She founded her a language exchange platform when she was 10, I believe.
Wow.
She's hosting an event at Apple Causeway Bay in Hong Kong to help to teach others how to pitch ideas and build the platform. So it's pretty amazing.
So much of my life.
Yeah.
Look how much she's achieved at 10 years old. That's amazing.
I know. It is amazing. So yeah, there's just a lot of great stuff. And then if you just open up the App Store today, you're going to find games, music playlists, or well, if you open up the App Store or iTunes or Apple Music or the iBook Store, you'll find all kinds of content that's all centered around women, either that women are starring roles in or that women created. So it's a great day for all kinds of great content.
And great work, Lori. Those 2 articles are amazing.
Thank you. I really enjoyed being able to interview the women. It feels good when you're part of that, and to hear other people's stories that are either very different than your experience or very similar to your experience. But no matter what, you kind of find a common ground with these women, because there's always a piece of it that you kind of identify with. Like, yeah, I know what that's like. I know what that feels like. So it's pretty cool.
And I like how a lot of the messages today aren't just celebrating like Gal Gadot and Wonder Woman and like all the superheroes, but everyone who has challenges, who've faced immense adversity, have had like the worst things happen to them, and how we can all help and make a better world. I think that's really inspiring.
Definitely. There's 50% of the population is made up of women. So it's, feels important that we make it so that 50% of everything that's done and everything that exists is represented in that way. So,
and here's my terrible math. I don't know how many people on Earth yet, but that's at least like 4 or 5 billion stories.
Yeah, that's a lot.
What is the population now? I have no idea.
It's a lot.
I'm going to say it's 1 trillion, and there's like 500 billion stories to tell.
Yeah.
This is exciting. And two, I think, if you're looking for sort of ways to support folks in other places, especially as a guy, your best bet is to sort of share and support those voices around you, the voices of women around you. It is a day that is best, I think, put forth to just celebrate the women, and the women in your life, the women that you respect, and women everywhere. And so that means kind of just letting their voices be heard, I think, is important, because again, going back to sort of what companies do wrong is sort of putting themselves in front of the thing, as opposed to letting the thing itself, whatever it happens to be, sort of be at the forefront. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's definitely a walk the walk, don't talk the talk sort of thing. If you have an organization where, there are 10% women working there and none of them are in high positions, and you start celebrating women on International Women's Day, you're doing it wrong. Definitely.
Yeah, agreed.
Lori will come to your house.
I will find you and I will tell you you're doing it wrong. Because you have a particular set of skills. Okay, well, you can find so much more in Lori's articles over on iMore.com. You can also use the International Women's Day hashtag to discover more stuff that's out there and find folks talking about International Women's Day. So be sure to do that. Let's talk about something interesting. The headline for this piece from Renee says, or rather the version that we see kind of, what's discussing here is why encryption isn't always the right thing to do. In fact, your subtitle here, encryption is good, it's great, but encrypting backups isn't the best thing to do for everyone, not even for most people. So tell me what's going on here, Renee, because in the ever expanding discussion that seems to take place online, one would be led to believe that encrypt everything is the right option. So what's going on here?
So I believe this is all Lori Gill's fault, but I'll get into it. I was assigned backing up for we did like a World Backup Day, I think was sometime last year, and I was assigned to update all of our backup stuff. And I didn't want to do just, here's how you back up your Mac, because that was kind of boring. So I reached out to a bunch of different people, including InfoSec people, like Will Straffic, and but people also write backup software like Dave Nanian, who makes the amazing SuperDuper that I use continuously. And I was like, I don't see clear instructions, because the article I think I had to write was how to encrypt your Mac backup. And I'm like, I don't really see clear instructions here. And he's like, yeah, please don't do that. I'm like, but what do you mean? Encryption is good. And he's like, no, okay, sit down. Here's some tea. Let me just explain to you that there's two very different worlds out there. There are InfoSec people who will tell you to absolutely encrypt everything. And then there are people who make backup software who will say, please don't. And the reason is this: you have to decide, and everyone has to decide for themselves, and no one has the right to make anyone else feel guilty or bad about this, whether the worst thing that can happen to you is someone else gaining access to your stuff, or if the worst thing that can happen to you is you losing access to your stuff. So for example, if you take a bunch of pictures you never want anybody else to see, then you should encrypt those. But if you have pictures of your wedding and your kids, you shouldn't encrypt those, because if they are encrypted and the drive fails, and fail all the time, you cannot do data recovery on those drives. Those drives are gone. That's the whole advantage of encrypting, is that nobody can get into them. But if you ever have something that's so important to you that your world would end, your marriage would end, your relationship with your kids would end, your business, whatever, if you lost that stuff, then do not encrypt it. Make multiple copies of it. Have a copy online. Encrypt the online copy if you have to, because often you have all the. But make your backups and do not encrypt them. And don't put anything in there that's really private that you don't want anybody else to see. But do put on things there that you absolutely cannot afford to lose. And then keep those things someplace safe. Because if someone steals my baby pictures, that's fine. That's all right. Post them. I don't care. But if I lose those in a fire, or because a platter drive goes bad, I'm shook. I'm desolate. Whatever the kids are calling absolutely burnt to the ground at that point.
Yeah, and that's a really good analogy. There's these things that are called like fire safes and fire rooms. So if you kind of think of your computer data as a photo book, let's say, you're gonna put your photo book in your living room, or somewhere easily accessible. And if the house catches on fire and you have enough time to grab important things in addition to your family, you're probably going to grab your photos and run out of the house. If your house catches on fire and you have like your social security card and your like the papers for the lockbox that you have at the bank, those are probably, if you have it, in a firebox or in a fire room, so that the whole place could burn down and that stuff is still protected and untouched. And that's kind of the idea behind what encryption does, is it locks it down so tight that nobody gets it but you, but also nobody gets it if something goes wrong.
And I have a real world example. Like, we filmed for Talk Mobile 2013. We did this massive thing where we did like 30 episodes of a video series, and we interviewed a ton of people. And I ended up losing some of those interviews because I had them on 2 external drives that were encrypted, and both drives failed. And I thought, like, there's no way both drives. And because they were encrypted, we couldn't do recovery on it. And I wouldn't care if somebody found those drives and gotten the data off of it, because it's just a bunch of interviews with a bunch of our friends. But that I would have easily paid $1,000 to recover them if I had to, but I had no choice. So
that's heartbreaking.
You got to think about the content before you think about how you're going to back it up.
So do you think that's why Apple doesn't encrypt iCloud backups? Is it because of this
reason? That is
exactly
why. Like, with iOS 7, Apple went hardcore onto security, and it was so hardcore that people started losing access to their own stuff. They had to print out these long recovery numbers, and they would lose them. And they were storing exactly that: their family photos, their baby photos, their wedding photos, and Apple couldn't help them recover it. So Apple does encrypt iCloud backups. The only thing is that both you and Apple have a key to it, so that if you can prove ownership, Apple can help you decrypt them and get your stuff back. And this drives InfoSec people crazy, but really saves data for a lot of normal people. And it's my hope that what Apple will do is just bury it in the settings, a little switch that says encrypted. And when you turn it on, it'll say, warning, if anything goes wrong, we cannot help you recover this. Are you sure you want to encrypt it? And then if you really do have state secrets, or my other life as the penguin for the Montreal hockey team, whatever, I don't want anybody to ever find out, you can flip that switch. But if you just want to make sure that your stuff is safe, then you can leave it off. And then if anything really bad happens, Apple can help you get it back.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
That's super cool. That like I didn't realize that it was that they're encrypted, but that Apple and you both have a key.
Yeah.
I have my key written down. It's in a box under my feet right now.
And I've already stolen it.
Well, they invalidated most. So if you did the old Apple two-step authentication, you got the key. But then if you switch to two-factor, that key doesn't work anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, I do still have that key, even though it doesn't work anymore.
Maybe you could.
Right, like normal people don't keep those, or they have no idea where they put it, or it got thrown. Like it was a nightmare for people.
Yeah.
And
we're not often compassionate to non-nerds.
That's yes. Absolutely, what you're saying there, it's so true, and that's it gets sad whenever it's kind of like you just sort of I don't know like feign surprise and don't really help out. Like, oh, you don't do this and you don't do this. You should be doing this and this.
Yep.
You didn't encrypt your backup. You didn't have a second backup. Well, you should have had one.
That's so sad.
Stop crying and listen to me scolding you.
Yeah. Exactly. Let's go ahead though and move on to the next thing, because I think this is one that folks tend to get pretty excited about. Anytime there's rumors kicking around about next gen devices, we get we get people's eyes, we get people's attention. They want to know what's possibly next. And Renee, I think I saw you post, maybe it was on Instagram, maybe it was on Twitter, a photo of a mock-up of what you could see as the iPad 7, correct?
Yeah, so this one is interesting. We've had the rumors of the iPad mini before, and we've also had rumors of the iPad 7, the next generation low cost. Like, last year we got the iPad 6 that added pen. So just to back up a little bit, we had iPad, and then we had iPad 2, which was the thinner, faster, lighter one. And then we went through 3, got Retina display, we went to 4, and then we got iPad Air, and then iPad Air 2. And then there was like a pause in iPads as iPad went Pro. And then a couple of years ago, Apple went back to the normal non-Pro iPad, but they sort of took it down a peg. They got rid of the laminated display, and they did a lot of cost-cutting stuff so they could sell it cheaper. And then last year, they made it even cheaper, but added pencil support to it, which I loved because as the iPad Pros have gotten more expensive, Apple is also taking some of their best technologies and pushing them down to an even lesser priced device, which is great for like schools, sure, enterprise, sure, but just everybody who wants an iPad but doesn't need a Pro. And the rumor is this year, now that the 10.5-inch iPad has gone to 11, we're going to let the 9.7 one go to 10.2, so it'll have smaller bezels, and it might even get the smart keyboard. Because there's more fancy stuff at the high end, so there's less concern about eating into those precious Pro dollars. And I think like a 10, tell me if I'm wrong here, Lori, but a 10.2-inch iPad with Apple Pencil and a smart keyboard, I don't think that would be just compelling for schools, but I think kind of everybody would love that.
Definitely. The when Apple moved the iPad Pro to from 9.7 to 10.5, that was a really big deal, and it really made a difference. That like just that little bit of extra space doesn't make the tablet feel that much bigger, but it gives you so much more screen space. So yeah, it's a big deal. If this is true, this is a great thing going forward for iPad. To me, last year's update that gave a 9.7-inch iPad Apple Pencil support was such a big thing that I'm kind of surprised that they're doing, and if this is true, that they're doing another big thing this year. It seems like they could wait a year before they give us another big thing.
Do we don't want to wait? Come on.
Well, yes, but if you think about when the 9.7-inch iPad got pencil support, how many people jumped on that and went and bought the new iPad? Now there's going to be another one that's possibly so different that everyone who bought that 9.7-inch iPad with Apple Pencil support are like, well, that sucks. That's less than a year ago. So I've always thought that the 2-year recycle, or the 2-year update to the hardware was actually like a lot easier on our pocketbooks. Phones make a lot of sense to go sort of every year, but like every other year is sort of a smaller generation one. Apple used to do that. and they kind of like pulled back on that, and they'll do really big iterations every single year sometimes, and then other times they don't do that big of a change year to year.
Like 18 months, I feel now.
iPad Pro
vacillate, yeah. It was like spring, and then it was like summer, and then it was fall, and
yeah. It keeps changing. And for those of us who like to get the next big thing, there's always this sense of, well, I just bought this big one. I don't need the new big one for this year. I can wait 1 year. But when you have two big feature changes back to back, you kind of get this sense of like, oh man, I should have waited, which also puts you in a position where now that the new thing comes out, you think, well, maybe I should wait because maybe something bigger is coming next year. So you just never know. If you're,
I have this childhood memory of Bloom County with Opus buying his Banana Junior computer and watching it come off the cash register, and then a garbage can saying obsolete at the end of the cash register, and just throwing it away. And that's why I always tell people, like, wait as long as you can possibly wait, and then buy it, and like be totally based about it after that. Like, just don't care at all what else comes out, because there'll always be something newer and better. But you can't wait forever, so just buy it and own it.
Buy it, own it, and own it.
And own it.
I think the new one is stupid. Terry hates the new one. The new one is dumb.
Exactly. You gotta. I mean, I'm still rocking the 10.5-inch iPad Pro. It's old school, but I love it.
It works great.
Promotion. It's a beautiful machine.
Yeah. I love it.
It's got Apple Pencil. It's rose gold. It's all the things that I want.
The new ones aren't rose gold.
Exactly. So I'm owning it. And owning it.
Can I just jump in real quick and just comment on the crazy Twitter thread that happened a few days ago, 2 days ago, I think it was. I'm sure I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Dan Seifert.
Yeah.
At DCSEIFERT.
Of Verge fame.
He took all these pictures of various phones and their zoom and their sort of like display capabilities, but he put Rene Ricci and Vector on every single one of them and just kind of blasted the internet with these great pictures, which was hilarious.
Dan took my big head and used it to show the difference in visual eye bleeding that notches and holes in the display cause when you're watching videos on. And he started off with the Samsung Galaxy 10 and the bullet hole in my forehead. And then he moved on to various notches from like the Essential phone and then the LG and then in the end, Honor, which is I think a Huawei subsidiary, blasted my face onto their Twitter account. And it's not going to end, Mike. It's like the stone at the beginning of Indiana Jones. It's just the Raiders. It's just coming down behind me and I'm running as fast as I can.
It's going to be the next sort of meme that phone manufacturers use to display their notches. It's gonna show up like on the next like keynote from the next phone maker or something.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was the funniest thing. It was so brilliant and so clever. I had a good time looking at all those pictures. It was great.
Oh wow, yeah, and I like seeing. I too like seeing how the different screens are looking. The Essential phone is hilarious.
Yeah. So I needed to just bring that up because it was funny.
Before we move on to talk about some more stuff, I do want to briefly talk to you folks about Wix. You can create a professional website by yourself with Wix. It is a super cool site where you can start and publish a website for free. You can choose from over 500 stunning templates or just start from scratch, and you get to change, customize, or add anything that you want. That's text, that's images, that's videos, that's so much that's available to you. They've got built-in SEO tools so you can make sure that you're found when people do Google searches or searches elsewhere like Bing or DuckDuckGo. That's for Georgia, who's not here with us. And everything is automatically optimized for any device that you use. So whether you're on desktop, mobile, the 10.5-inch iPad Pro, or the 16.274-inch foldable phone, whatever it happens to be, it's going to be optimized for any device. So your site's going to look great on all of those things. And you can get all the tools that you need to build an awesome website. So that includes storage, a custom domain, if you need email addresses, if you need to set up a newsletter, all sorts of awesome stuff to help you get things figured out. Now, when I went through to create a website for the iMore show, what I found super awesome was this thing called Wix ADI. ADI stands for Artificial Design Intelligence, and it helps you create a website in just minutes. How does it do this? Well, it asks you a few questions. What kind of site are you looking to create? What sort of industry are you in? You pop in those questions, or rather those answers. You upload your logo, and it pulls a color scheme from the logo that you upload and applies that to the site. So not only do you get a site that looks right for the business or sort of organization that you're creating a site for, but it also matches in color scheme as well. I found that super fantastic, super fun, and super easy, most importantly. And for those of you out there who like to get your hands dirty whenever you're building a website, there's also Wix Code, which essentially means that you get to go in and edit the code exactly how you want to. It's serverless, hassle-free coding. You can build advanced web applications and robust websites using Wix's platform. Very, very cool. So how do you go get started? Well, you go to Wix.com. That's Wix.com/podcast. And that is going to get you 10% off. Again, that's Wix.com/podcast to learn more and sign up and create your own website. Thanks so much to Wix for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. Let's talk about Tim Apple.
Yes,
I just wanted.
Let's do that. I want to do that with
wanted
Lori
to
Hargrove.
talk about. I woke up. Was it yesterday morning? It seems like it was so long ago, and just the internet was just throwing its hands in the air at the hilariousness of what had taken place.
I just don't care.
And it's hard to even just bring this up, that assuming that somebody might not have known, but just in case you didn't know, Donald Trump was in. I actually don't know what this meeting was. Maybe if somebody actually
business leaders,
a meeting of business leaders,
something,
and he was complimenting Apple and Tim Cook, and just kind of, oh, you've done a lot for the country and stuff like that, really great things. And he says, "Thank you, Tim Apple." Oh man, I just can't get over how funny it was. And I think
Cook took it well though, because if you look at the video, like he didn't miss a beat.
He didn't even. He kept the straightest poker face on that. But at that, it was like seconds after that happened, everybody on the internet was like, Donald Trump just called Tim Cook Tim Apple, and like
so
just memes were immediately in place for it. So then what happens the next day, or the next morning, actually, I guess, is when it took place. Renee.
Yeah, so I mean, at some point, someone in Apple comms. I mean, I don't know if it was Tim personally, or if it was someone in corporate communications or buzz marketing or something, got the wonderful idea of having him not change his name to Tim Apple, APPLE, but to the Apple logo, which you can render on iOS and macOS devices. It doesn't render on other things, so it's Tim Box. If you're on a Windows or an Android device, it's like Tim Box, a weird character. But if you're on an Apple device, it's Tim Apple. He didn't say anything, didn't tweet anything, just like all casually slid into his profile and updated his name. And then later on in the day, there was Phil Apple Schiller, and I'm sure that it has just gone gangbusters from there.
I decided that Renee needs to change his name to Renee Vector, because that actually sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, if your last name was Vector, that'd be super cool.
Or if it was Victor Vector, that would be awesomely Leslie Nielsen.
It's actually a very punk rock thing to do. The Ramones started this kind of, well, it probably goes back even further than that, because there's lots of people that kind of have used the last name, or the name of their band as their last name. So it's probably before the Ramones, but they made it the most popular. They just started calling themselves Joey Ramone, Johnny Ramone, Dee Dee Ramone.
And there are gaming guilds now that everyone has the same, like the FaZe clan, I guess, is a big one. Everyone has FaZe this, FaZe that.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun to see, like, Tim Apple, like, to me, yeah, that's like your punk rock name.
Freddie Mercury, Tim Apple. So just to have some kind of, if anyone is curious, that the Apple character, which is in Unicode as F8FF is one of a few code points within Unicode that are called private use areas. So these code points are specifically left undefined by the Unicode Consortium or consortium, so that a company can come in and define those characters however they see fit.
I thought you were going to say defile.
Defile those characters however they see fit. So that way you can pop in whatever sort of symbol you want without sort of going against what Unicode says should exist. They're purposely left undefined. So frankly, if a third-party company wanted to, they could display what on Mac OS and iOS looks like the Apple character. They could display that as their own logo if they wanted to. It's purposely left as a private use area for third parties to drop in whatever they want to those code points. So most of the time, yeah, you're just going to see a square on the wrong, if you're not on the right platform, and it's kind of a fun little internal code where you feel like you're part of the team, kind of.
I love how much you know about Unicode.
I am a Unicode nerd. Let me tell you.
Lori, it ties into emoji. Of course, he knows everything.
It's so fascinating to me. Like, I learned so much about Unicode and emoji just from these little things that I don't even think about. And here you come in and you're like F star FF and
like. Do you think Micah might have some like Klingon, like he looks at Emojipedia and Jeremy and has like some Klingon plan for them?
or he has like, it's like having a babelfish in his ear. Like he can like interpret Unicode and emoji in a way that none of the rest of us can.
Curtis Boyle in the chat says, does that mean that each company can create their own graphic for those characters, i.e. they are not standardized at all, so other companies would have completely unique characters? Correct. Yeah. It's specifically called a private use area so that there's nothing assigned. You can drop whatever you want in there, and however you choose to have that code point rendered on your computer is how it is rendered. So they, according to Unicode's, they've got this policy in place that says, hey, we've got to keep things stable, because if we don't, then it's going to break apart everything that we've created, everything we stand for. So their policy on that says, hey, this is how it's going to be for the rest of the time that, Unicode versions exist. So it's kind of fun, I think, that you can go in and sort of choose what you want there. And in fact, in this document that I'm reading, multiple private parties may assign different characters to the same code point, with the consequence that a user may see one private character from an installed font where a different one was intended. So yeah, be careful whenever you're using those characters.
So does that mean that Windows could do an anti-Apple?
Yes. They could do like a cross through if they wanted to. Yeah. Tim no Apple or Tim Windows, frankly.
Yeah. Somebody needs to get on that. Then they control Apple users.
They could. Alrighty. What do we want to talk about next? Because we've got some. We haven't talked on this show, Lori. You and I talked about it earlier this week, but we haven't talked on this show about Apple allowing repairs for iPhones after third-party batteries are installed.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring it up on our show because the last show we did, we talked about right to repair a little bit.
Georgia,
this was before.
It was hard to watch. It was hard for the kids to watch.
And this was before the discovery that Apple had made these changes. So I kind of wanted to do a follow-up. Unfortunately, Georgia isn't here for me to fight with about the same exact thing. I'm pretty sure that Renee has come around at least partly on the entire idea of it. I think I just to bring back the discussion for just one moment, Renee, I think what I understand about the issues you have with right to repair is government intervention in that, and government forcing organizations to allow people to repair their phones. It should be maybe a little more on the side of the companies to be in charge of that.
Well, so my thing is just safety first. So what was so fascinating about this is that Apple did first what I thought that they would save for last. Like, a lot of the stuff is super easy. If you want to replace a lot of stuff, there's no, like, the worst thing can happen is you could, break your phone. But there are a few things having to do with the electrical system and the lithium ion battery that could actually be like devastatingly bad, like burn your car, house, person down, because lithium ion is not stable. So I thought that Apple would like We need to have standards. If you want to repair these things, you've got to be like you've got to go through the certification program, all this stuff. And Apple's like, no, first, they're not, it's hard to describe. If you have changed your lithium ion battery on your own, they're going to treat it as if you didn't, which is, even if it's like, if you changed it and it's broken everything else in the phone, they're still not going to yell at you about changing the battery. They're just going to treat it as though it's an out of warranty replacement.
Right. So I think this was a great decision on Apple's part for the exact reason that you're talking about, Renee, which is the safety element. If somebody brings in their iPhone and says, it's sparking, and then Apple's like, well, you put in a third-party battery, so your face is going to blow up. Sorry. Now
it's rolling up so big.
Yeah, and with this new regulation in place, which just to give you a little bit, everyone that's listening, if you didn't already know about it, they're just changing the regulations or the policy with Apple geniuses or Apple technician services, that if you have a third-party battery, an aftermarket battery in your iPhone, they're not going to turn you away for repairs. That's the basic cut and dry of the situation, is that third-party battery inside your phone does no longer means we won't repair it. So that's what's going on. And if Apple's idea on this is safety, then this is a very great way to make things safer for you. If you went and tried to save a buck and put in a third-party battery and it broke your phone, and then you go to Apple with your head down and you're like, I'm sorry, I put in another battery because I thought I would save money, but now I broke my phone, then Apple can say, like, yeah, we'll give you a safe battery. Thanks for coming to us. So I think it's a great,
at the same price as a regular, like, they're not even gonna like add an insult tax to it,
right? Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's is it just like the $49.69 price, I believe, if I'm not
so like
mistaken?
if it's not related to the battery, they will pretend like the battery is normal and they'll ignore it and they'll just charge you whatever the other repair is. If it has to do with the battery, they'll just swap it out so that with an Apple certified battery, as if it was or previously an Apple battery. And if something bad happened, like they tore off the thing, they melted it, they glued it down, they I don't know, used an arc welder to install it, whatever, they're just going to go, okay, this is toast, but we'll swap it out for whatever the swap out price is.
Right. To me, this is great. This is a lot about what we were talking about on the last show, which is something along the lines of if you crack your phone screen, Apple isn't going to turn you away because you put a different battery in it. And I think this is fantastic. So it's a great step in the right direction. And it certainly, to me, shows that there are ways that companies and the government can kind of work together to try to figure out a way for us to be able to fix our phones and do what we think is right, because we own those phones, but also protect companies so that they're not liable or they're not at fault for you doing something stupid with your phone.
And there's one thing to add, because there was a little bit of pushback from people who were like nervous about safety concerns, especially like geniuses inside Apple were like, oh, great, drunken Uncle Bobby replaced your battery and now it's going to spit acid all over me the minute I open the thing. But what Apple's doing is they have guidelines. Like, for example, the battery has to be drained to 60% before the genius goes inside, so they are putting those things in place, so that I think this is one of those best of both worlds sort of solutions.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I hope a lot more companies do that. And I think it goes a long way to hopefully provide more ways that we can repair our products ourselves, repair our phones ourselves. So good job on Apple.
Brava. Okay, well, let's see.
Let's talk about Disneyland. I want to talk about Disneyland. I've been waiting this whole time to talk about Disneyland.
Okay, we'll talk about Disneyland. Let's do it. What's going on at Disneyland?
I can't even remember how long ago. 3 years ago?
Forever.
Maybe more than 3 years ago.
A long time ago, Lori, in a galaxy far, far away.
Disney announced that they were building Star Wars Land, which is what they were calling it then. I think they've actually officially changed the name of it now. So way back then, I can remember saying, oh, I think they said it was coming out in 2018. Oh, I think they said it was coming out in 2019. Oh, I think they said it's not coming out until 2020. I mean, it's been so long that we've been wondering when it's going to happen. Well, they officially announced that a soft opening is happening in the Anaheim Disneyland location on May 30th. So very soon. There are, let's see, there's one. So the complex called Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, the ride, is not going to be open. And some of the other things within the Star Wars land are not going to be open yet. So they're launching it in 2 phases. Phase 1, it does include the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Ride, food restaurants,
You know, those food
restaurants and other stores where you can buy fun stuff there. That's going to be there. And then the Star Wars The Rise of Resistance will open up in the 2nd phase, plus a couple of other little additional things that they just haven't been able to get together yet. And Disney said it's just that there was so much excitement around Star Wars Land coming out that they decided to kind of give us not a sneak peek, because it's like half of it is done. Phase 1 is done. So they're just going to roll out as much of it as they can for now. And then, we're just going to see some construction in the background until phase 2 is done. And Star Wars fans don't care. We're so excited about this that, like, if the only thing you did was like open up the entryway and you put one stall in front where you were selling drinks out of a weird cup, like, we would jump for joy just at that little tidbit. So it's really exciting. And you have to register or reserve your entrance between May 31st and June 23rd. And I just want to say my prediction here, they didn't say anything about this, but I think phase 2 is opening up after June 23rd. That was already a rumor that was going around, was that Star Wars Land would open on June 22nd. So my prediction here is that because of that limitation that you have to reserve entrance to Star Wars Land between May 31st and June 23rd, is that I think that they're going to open the whole thing up after that. So let's see. We'll find out. So I'm probably going. I haven't made my official plans yet because I'm actually already going to Disneyland for Mother's Day with my mom 2 weeks before that. So I'm trying to figure out, like, I think I still have to go anyway, just because it's Star Wars.
Could always postpone Mother's Day by a couple weeks.
I wouldn't do that to my mom. I wouldn't make my mom go to Disneyland on the opening of Star Wars either. It's going to be really horrendous. So, yeah, so it's super exciting. I literally, I'm so excited that this is finally open. I just remember being so excited when I first heard about it, and I can't believe it's finally happening just a few months from now.
How fun. How fun. Well, folks, do we have anything else that we want to talk about here? I guess, what is this about the PS4 on iPhone? What's going on?
Yeah, this was, I just thought I would bring it up. I haven't had a chance to actually do this yet, so I don't know how smooth or seamless it works, but PlayStation has an app called the Remote Play app that up until yesterday or the day before yesterday, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, until yesterday, you couldn't use the Remote Play app to actually play video games on your iPhone. You could use it on Android phones, but you couldn't use it on your iPhone. But now it's opened up that feature. So you connect it to your PlayStation game. It has to have the right software update 6.5 on PlayStation 4 consoles. And then you have the app on your phone and you sync them together. And then you can literally play your PlayStation 4 games on your phone screen. You can't, they have to be on the same Wi-Fi network. So you can't hop on the bus and play, Anthem or something like that. You have to be within the same Wi-Fi network. But I immediately, at first I was like, well, what's the point of that if you can't leave your house with it? It's not very remote. But then I started thinking about all the times when I want to hop on and play some video games on PlayStation 4, but my partner wants to watch a movie or something like that. And I feel like, well, okay, I'll let you watch a movie and I won't play my video games, or, or I'm in like laying in bed and relaxing and maybe I just want to play a game real quick. I'd have to go into the living room to do it because I don't have to, like an animal. So this makes it so that you can do that. I can just pick up my phone, sync up with my PlayStation 4 and play games. Again, I haven't done this yet, so I don't know the exact process. I'm sure I'll do it over the weekend and really spend some time on that. And Curtis just happened to mention that given the power of the A12 Bionic, I imagine that they would play quite well. And yeah, I'm hoping that there won't be a lot of stutter and jitter. I don't play any super graphics heavy, fast paced games. The graphics heavy games that I play are usually kind of slow paced, but I'm super jazzed about this. I actually downloaded the remote app on my iPad first, thinking the really large screen was going to be really great. But then I, again, haven't done it yet, so I don't know what the experience is like. Then I was thinking about it's on-screen controls, unless you use an M5 controller, which I'm not even sure it's compatible with the remote app. But if it is compatible with the remote app, the iPad screen is perfect. If it's not, you have to hold it and all
the way on the edges.
Yeah, and imagine having to hold your iPad screen in your hand while you're playing these really intense games. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll come back next week with my review of that.
Excellent. Okay, folks. Anything else we wanna discuss before we hop on out of here?
I'm happy. I think we talked about a lot.
We did. Renee, are you happy?
Yes, and I'm just rereading Lori's awesome International Women's Day article. So please do go check those out.
You shouldn't be reading while we're doing the podcast.
Someone brought it up. I got a little note on them from some people saying how awesome they were, and I just looked at it like this.
Oh, that's nice.
That's great.
My knowledge of how awesome they were.
Lauren Gill, yeah. Well, folks, I think that's going to do it then for us this week. Yes, please do go check out. We'll include links to those in the show notes. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Jim Metzendorf, for editing the show and making us sound beautiful every week. If Georgia Dow were here, she'd tell you could find her sometimes over on Twitter at Georgia_Dow. You can also check out anxiety-videos.com to get access to some really great videos to help you with boundary setting and conflict resolution, depression, anxiety, all sorts of things. Lori Gill, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
They can find me at Appaholic. That's APPAHOLIK on Twitter. They can find me at Lori Gill at most of the other social things. And they can find me at iMore, writing about International Women's Day, because women's rules.
Excellent. Renee Ritchie, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
Since I am not Georgia Anxiety, they're going to have to go somewhere else to find me at the Renee Vector site, which is at Renee Ritchie on all the social stuff, and imore.com/vector on the blogs, and youtube.com/vector show. I sense a pattern, a trend here on the YouTubes.
Excellent. If you're looking for me online, you can find Micah Host or Micah Chihuahua over on Twitter at Micah
Coffee.
Micah Coffee over on Twitter at Micah Sargent. And in fact, at Micah Sargent on most social things. You can also head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee for links to the different things that I do. You can find all of our writing over on iMore.com. We will, of course, be back next week with more to talk about. And depending on when you're listening to this, I hope you have a great week or weekend. This has been the iMore Show.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.